Today we have Madhavan from the pricing book that changed everybody's life. He came out with a second book called Scaling Innovation. I read Pricing Innovation and completely blew my mind. It blew how I thought about pricing, blew how I thought about building products. And his second book, Scaling Innovation, is even better. I actually took a chart out of there and I use it now in pretty much all my conversations with agent companies around how you think about pricing. Madhavan, so good to have you.
So good to have me here, Manny. Thank you for calling me.
So we talk about three things that are happening in your life right now, which we're gonna go pick at it right now again. So you started a fund,
Yes.
49Palms,
Yes.
which means that you have to fundraise it.
Mhm.
Now you're closing it, which means you have to deploy it
Mhm.
while we're still fundraising.
Mhm.
And you just launch a book. That means you have to take it on the road. Why are you doing crazy stuff like this?
I think it all kind of comes together. I mean, for what at least we realize is, and that's probably true with many founders as well, is that monetization is the key to winning in AI.
Mm.
The fund is all about investing in supporting companies, rolling up our sleeves and helping them monetize their innovations.
Yep.
The book is about how to scale monetization.
Right.
So I think it all comes together. One feeds into the other. Founders read the book, they reach out to us and they want to talk, and that could be an investment discussion.
Oh, so that's a pipeline builder.
It's a
That is
pipeline
an
builder
demand
for sure.
generation book.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, every day I get a ping on LinkedIn saying I'm a YC batch X and I just read your book and was foundational. In my previous capacity, that was thanks for reading the book. But in an investing capacity, that's probably all deal flow. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
That's amazing. What did you plan it that way, or just it happened that you were inspired to write the book and you happened to raise a fund and it's all
Yeah.
converging?
I think there's a lot, for sure, there's a lot going on. I was hoping that there'll be a, gap of a few months between these activities, but it all happened to be at the same time and things happen for a reason. So,
Interesting. So agents was not a thing when you wrote the book.
mhm.
What has happened since you wrote the book that you're seeing in the real world? What has surprised you? What's the same? What's different?
Yeah, actually, we did call out agent-based pricing, even though, it was not
You did.
in vogue because we saw it coming. I think
Okay.
as much as you saw it coming when you started Pay.
Yeah.
So we do talk about agent pricing. I think what has, and the book is only out for a month. So I think it's, and, what has changed? I think the importance of figuring this out, has changed in the sense that even, when we started the fund, when we started writing the book, etc., I was thinking that, monetization would be let's say a series A or B topic, right, for founders, right? I mean, you have a product, you have a market, you have some initial traction, okay, and then you need to scale it. Monetization becomes key. Like kind of back into the previous vintage of companies who would say, I would grow and then figure out monetization. What changed is you can't do that anymore.
Right.
So what we are seeing is as early as pre-seed or seed stages, I mean, even pre-seed, founders really wanting to understand how to navigate monetization because of AI, right? I mean, a couple of things changed in the sense that at least in the last couple of years, which are key, which is, cost dynamics are always ongoing. So you need to figure out monetization from the get-go. But I think what people also realized is if POC is the default way to actually sell,
Yeah.
you need to showcase value, and you need to showcase value and have a commercial discussion.
Right.
So you need to be good at, monetization and GTM from the get-go. I mean,
Yes.
things like, oh, I have a 2 years head start in coding is no longer the moat.
Right.
Your moat is monetization and GTM. Can you get the products in the hands of many people?
Yep.
Can you make it stick? And will they pay for the value?
Yep.
So these topics have become way more relevant even in the early stage. And if you're tapping into with agents like things like labor budgets,
Yes.
they're 10x compared to software budgets, and you use the old playbooks, you'll under monetize from day one.
Yep.
And you'll train your customers to expect more for less. So all the cool stuff that you built, AI that does attribution, everything else falls off the window, and you're back to SaaS monetization. I think people realize that. I think that realization has changed.
Yeah.
And people are taking this topic much more seriously from the get-go.
Interesting. One of the problems that I'm seeing right now, and I would love your take on it, is SaaS companies are building agents and they're taking them to market.
Yes.
What are best practices for that 5 to 10 to 15-year-old SaaS company that is now needing the next inflection of growth? They're seeing agents, they're bringing them to market, but they're already sold seats.
Yeah.
So how do they do this transition? Like, what's the advice there?
Yeah, I think there is a
All the listeners out there who
for
are,
sure,
who
for
are
sure.
stuck.
There's a incremental way and there's a revolutionary way. We can talk about both,
Let's
right?
do it.
The incremental way is to probably move to a hybrid-based model. I
Mhm.
mean, seed-based model is frankly pretty much dead. I can be controversial or not in
What?
saying that.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, you're just catching a falling knife. If your product is also gonna, display seeds and you price it based on seeds,
100%.
that's not a great idea. So the hedge against that in an incremental way is to actually go hybrid, which
Yeah.
is a combination of seeds and consumption.
Yep.
Either you're born into that kind of philosophy, or you migrate to that. If you're an incumbent, you migrate to that.
Yep.
Many of the let's say take even copilot, like the traditional copilots, like coding copilots, like GitHub used to be on a per seat model, but all of them have now migrated to a per seat and a consumption model where you have tokens, and based on different consumption of tokens and queries, you can even buy more tokens, etc. on top of a seat base. You're still in copilot mode. That's the incremental way to do it. You're at least hedging against offset of like seats reducing with like usage and consumption, and also giving yourself a expansion pathway with like selling more consumption tokens.
Right.
That's the incremental way. That's, if you don't do that, you should really look in the mirror and question yourself. That's the comfortable incremental way. At least do that.
Yeah.
The more revolutionary
But what
approach.
you do with the argument before you go to the
Yeah.
revolution? So let's say you sell a seed per $100 per seed per month.
Yeah.
Right. And now you're consuming tokens on top of the seed.
Yeah.
Right. What do you make to the objection of like, I don't want an on cap expense, which is what tokens do for you?
Yeah.
Cap them? Do you not cap them? Like,
Yeah.
what are you selling?
So there are a couple of ways to also do this. I mean, if you're an incumbent traditional SaaS, you probably trained your install base to, think about things like a good, better, best packages, which come with different feature benefits and different seat-based pricing models. So there's a good thing and the bad thing. The bad thing is you have trained them. The good thing is you can start now layering in like token provisions on these plans, and you can actually steer people to like better plans.
Got it.
Right. So like every plan comes with a certain amount of token provision, which also lets people self-select themselves into the right plan. So what you have now done is, features alone don't dictate a plan choice. It's features and usage which will determine a plan choice. And if you, let's say run out of tokens in that plan, then you have an automatic conversation say, hey, you can just go to the next plan, and you just invented a land and expand conversation.
Amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can actually migrate people to like a better plan, which has more tokens. Or for those few who don't want to do that, you can still sell token packs and have a, per use monetization on like a pack of tokens, etc. Right. But it has actually given you a natural expansion conversation opportunity, which didn't used to exist in SaaS to a large extent, because unless you wanted those features and benefits, there's no reason to actually migrate.
Right.
And often incumbents erred on the side of giving all the cool value in the lower end packages, so there was no incentive to actually migrate. So now tokens actually gives you an excuse to have a migration conversation.
Interesting.
Right.
So you put tokens and more functionality in the next package? Is that what you do?
Yeah, correct. And then the seat prices are, so it's still a fixed seat price, which comes with a certain amount of features and certain amount of tokens provision.
Got it.
That's the easiest thing for a incumbent to do. And that gave you, like I said, an excuse to have a, upsell conversation. The more revolutionary thing to do is to like start from first principles and say, okay, with AI and agentic, what am I actually doing? Can I actually, build a new product or or bolt on to existing products, something that is truly agentic, which actually works on top of these kind of seed-based models, and that has its own monetization model. So I think the company that in my view, that has really done a great job on this is Intercom, right? I mean, traditional SaaS business, they still do the seed-based licenses, everything else.
Yeah.
But they also came up with FinAI,
Yeah.
which is branded as a new product.
Yep.
And the way FinAI is monetized is if an AI agent resolves the ticket by itself without any human intervention, then they charge for it, as you know.
Yeah.
If a human is required in the loop, then they don't charge for it. So now they are basically engineered a new product and selling agents on outcomes.
Yeah.
That's the more revolutionary way to do it. I think they were also talking about how successful this has been for Intercom.
I heard they just fundraise on the back of Intercom.
For sure. I mean,
growth.
exactly. I mean, I think they even started with like, 10, 20% of tickets being resolved with AI, but this also gives them a tight incentive along with their customers to make sure there are more AI resolutions.
Right.
Right? Because then they can actually see why humans were needed in the loop.
Right.
And actually, can AI actually do that and increase that percentage to 50 to 60%?
Yeah.
I mean, there might still be tickets always that needs a human intervention, but
Yeah.
that's not what you're playing on for that product.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's the more revolutionary way to do it. And why is this important? Because once you're an outcome-based model, your incentives with the customers are fully aligned, right? I
Yeah.
mean, when they get value, you get value.
Yeah.
And the key here is to build closed loop attribution, right? I mean, this is where people get it wrong, jump to outcome based models and hope for the best. Like Intercom, if the ticket is resolved and the end customer says, I'm happy with this ticket, and the AI resolved it, then
Yeah.
the attribution loop is closed.
Right.
And
right.
they can charge on it.
Right.
Right. So think of it from first principles. Can I build another additional product? That's the more revolutionary approach.
How will you compare their approach, which is I am transparent about what a resolution is.
Mhm.
You either call it a resolution or not,
Correct.
versus Sierra's, which
Yeah.
is completely custom. They
Mhm.
they open up the conversation saying you're gonna pay per outcome that you consider an outcome,
Yeah.
and then they're gonna go down the rat hole of like what an outcome is, whether it's just resolution or resolution that doesn't get open in 3 days, or resolution plus CISA plus MPS or whatever. Like how will you
Yeah.
how will you
I think
advise?
it comes down to what the product is for and who are the customers,
Mm-hmm.
and is it repeatable versus not.
Yeah.
Do you need to engage in a POC conversation with the customer
Mhm.
on every conversation, and that's your sales motion? That's a bit more like Sierra, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because their products can actually tap into many different workflows, many different outcomes are actually possible. So in those kind of cases, my advice would be to treat the POC, which is, let's say, the first 1 or 2 months POC, as a business case building exercise,
Okay.
as opposed to a tech validation.
Got it.
Especially many early stage founders would navigate POCs, and they're kind of hoping that the tech works, and they're like, I'm putting this in my customer's install and seeing if it works. That's the worst way to look at it as a POC, because at the end of the day, you probably didn't, build the conviction that there is value for this product.
Mm.
So the way I talk to founders is like, of course you need to do your tech diligence, but frame the POC as a exercise to co-create a business case with your customers. That's the goal of the POC. That's why you're paying for the POC.
I love it.
At the end of the POC, we'll have commercial discussions.
Right.
But think about what you've just done with that construct, right? You've basically given the person on the other side a reason to look really smart within the organization, right?
Mm.
At the end of the 60 days POC, they have a business case that they can go shepherd in the organization
Right.
and say, hey, look, this is going to unlock us tens of hundreds of millions. And then, of course, they're willing to pay, a percentage of that kind of conversation. It just made them look like the person was actually creating that value. But the key is to co-create. Many people would show up with a business case. At that point, it's a vendor showing a business case and it's an argument.
Right.
Co-creating would mean, clarifying what are the inputs and assumptions and working with the customer along the way. And if they agreed on the inputs and the assumptions, they're not going to challenge the outputs.
Right.
And it becomes their business case as much as it's yours.
Right.
Right. So in cases like Sierra, if you have those kind of, you need to have those conversations to like navigate multiple use cases, multiple products.
Right.
Then of course that's a default, motion. And in those cases, the KPIs for outcomes could be very different. I mean, you could have incremental revenue that
Right.
you're bringing to the table. You could reduce churn, so all on the top line. You could have hard cost savings, license reductions of other products, headcount reduction, etc. Or it could even be opportunity costs. If I made someone, I freed up 20 hours for someone, what are they actually going to do with that?
Right.
That can also be quantified.
Right.
So then building that business case with those three pillars becomes key.
Yeah.
In the case of Intercom, it's a bit more of a, let's say, scalable, like repeatable process that can actually be done even through self-serve. I mean, people can onboard and it's a ticket resolution on top of it.
Right.
In those cases, you're not having too many of those conversations, but
Right.
it's you're charging based on the outcome, right?
Right.
I mean, I would still think that a model like Intercom is still monetizing based on a value metric, which happens to be an AI resolved ticket.
Right.
A true outcome-based model
Mm.
would partake in the economic value of creation that you're actually creating with a customer, which is a bit more like the Sierra model, for instance, where you actually say, I helped you unlock 100 million,
Right.
and I'm actually going to take a portion of that.
Interesting.
Right? That is, for a purist, that's a bit more an outcome-based model than just a value metric, which is aligned with the outcome.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
What do you make with the argument that this custom pricing is hard to keep, it's hard to train, it's hard to maintain, or is it more aligned with the customer need?
I think if the customers buy into like the framing of a business case, they understand the value, and if your sales teams are equipped to actually have that conversation at scale,
Right.
then it's a great conversation to have, because you're going to partake in proper ways to actually monetize. I mean, not talking about Sierra, but in general in AI, what we have seen is, in the traditional SaaS businesses, we used to say if you're 1:10x in ROI, that's a good pricing. 10% of whatever value you're bringing.
Yeah.
In AI, we are seeing that number can even be 25 to 50%
Wow.
of the value that you're bringing, because of two
Interesting.
reasons. There is increased autonomy and there is increased attribution.
Yeah.
And you can justify that. And if I replace a salesperson and like it's good, I don't have to be 10%. I can be 25 to 50%,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
Especially agents and everything else. So that going through those purposeful discussions actually helps you unlock more models. But by definition, then you're also dealing with larger accounts, enterprises, Fortune hundreds, thousands, etc.
Yeah.
But at some point, those companies need to make a self-serve attempt, and the
Yeah.
self-serve ones need to build enterprise muscle.
Right.
That story is not going to change the AI either.
Well, it's
right?
been around for like 20 years.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think if your focus is on key enterprise, larger accounts, and landing and expanding within a set number of accounts, those kind of approaches are great.
Interesting.
So-
So who is doing it wrong?
Majority. Just kidding.
Let's get into
Yeah,
names.
I
Like
think
who do you
I
think
think
is
it's
not?
I think we can probably take some cases, like prototype of cases,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There's the classic incumbent, which is logged into a seed based and cannot build any pathways to attribution, and you're a bit stuck in that seed based model,
Yeah.
right? There's no notional value of can I even move to a hybrid?
Right.
I mean, in some ways, even Slack is still stuck there, right? I mean, in the sense that it is.
That's true.
You can say, okay, my productivity actually improved with Slack.
Yeah.
You can't measure it, you can't monitor it, you can't meter it, you can't charge based on it. The attribution is not clear. It is still
Yeah.
even though you have a feeling,
Yeah.
you cannot attribute to like core savings.
Yeah.
So they're still a bit in the SaaS mode and seed-based mode, right?
That's really interesting. So what would you do here at Slack?
I would probably think about, building some revolutionary products that are purpose-built, agent-built, and actually
Interesting.
do the FinAI kind of route. The
Interesting.
incremental game is probably not that exciting for Slack.
Yeah.
I think it has to be first principles thinking.
Yeah.
Can I build some agents that actually sit on top of Slack and
Yep.
can do some meaningful work
Right.
that I can monetize on it separately? They're sitting on a ton of information,
Interesting.
right? So that's what I would.
For instance, Slack search could be much better. They could put an agent around it, and then like you solve that problem because the Slack search right now is absolutely.
What is that
disaster.
FinAI model of FinAI equivalent for Slack? That is what I would think about. Like what end-to-end workflow can they actually solve with agents?
Yeah.
And how can they monetize? That
Sure.
requires some first principle thinking. That's one area where it's still wrong in the sense that it's suboptimal. The other area people get it wrong is try to rush into a model without understanding what is applicable for them based on their product and market characteristics.
Right.
Because there's all this new rhetoric on outcome-based model, as probably we are feeding the market to in some ways.
You're helping.
Yeah,
You're part of the solution here.
I know, but it's probably today it's applicable probably to like 5% of the companies.
Oh, interesting.
I do foresee this to grow to like 25 to 30% in the next few years.
Yeah.
It's rapidly growing.
Yeah.
But if you just heard the buzzwords and said, okay, I'm going to do outcome,
Yeah.
but you can't close the loop on attribution,
Right.
your autonomy is not to a large extent, it still needs human in the loop.
Yeah.
That model is not for you at this moment.
Right.
Pick the right model.
But would you argue that even you're not going to be around for too long because if somebody comes up with attribution that is better than yours,
then you're roadkill.
you're
right?
okay.
Yeah, so I think start with the right archetype. In the book, we actually talk about how to choose the archetype. That's the chart that you talked about. Choosing the right archetype and trying to see if you can go to that outcome-based model. I think that's a mistake to actually avoid.
Yeah.
I think the other probably who gets it wrong is you're completely basing your monetization on a cost plus strategy and not a value strategy. That happens to many companies.
That is
right?
really interesting. Yes.
Right. So you would say, okay, this task actually takes me 10 tokens. So I'm just a wrapper on top of an LLM. So let me just add a 20% margin on top of that token price, and that's my price.
Right.
And you even train your customers that this is, X% and it's tokens.
Right.
And of course, if these prices are going to keep coming down, you've just tied yourself to like a destiny that your pricing is going to keep coming down, right?
Interesting.
So the idea would be to actually move towards value-based pricing, where the how you charge needs to be based on a value metric as opposed to cost plus thinking. I mean, the FinAI is another example, right? I mean, same example in the sense that a resolution by AI is the value metric. How many tokens was required to create that resolution is frankly not even part of the discussion.
Right. Right.
How much cost was it to actually resolve is also not part of the discussion.
Interesting.
I'm selling you based on AI resolution
Yeah,
ticket,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So if you do it correctly on value-based pricing, when the costs actually fall, you've just increased your margin, and that's your pathway to get to profitable growth.
Right.
Even if you are indexing on low margin right now in AI, that's your pathway to get back to the glory 80%
Right. Right.
rebase in SaaS, right? I mean, so don't keep that as part of your pricing, but that should be a strategy to get back to margins, as opposed to like tying your pricing to
Yeah.
something.
So
Yeah.
what I heard on talking to leaders about the seat-based pricing and the ones that are stuck in your
Mhm.
mind, I heard the following. So first of all, what do you make of somebody like ServiceNow that is just attaching agents to the top tier? Is that the right strategy, or is that a holding pattern until they figure something out, or is the fact that they can't attribute the value so that you're still not continuing charging?
I think for a company like that, I would probably think about what is the let's say install base, and how many the customers are they actually acquiring that are net new. If they have already penetrated their install base to a large extent, let's say the Fortune companies, etc., then having that bolt-on agent-based pricing model is actually makes total sense, because they have just included an expansion lever,
Right.
which is AI, and most of their customers are like, we need AI. All right, we have an agent-based model, right?
Exactly.
So it just
Next
becomes
fee,
bolt-on.
boom.
Exactly, right? But if you're, let's say, if you're in the mode of attracting more customers, and you feel like, you only have, 80% of your monetization is going to come from prospects as opposed to customers,
Right.
then you need to be a bit more thoughtful with those kind of approaches.
Got it. What would you make of somebody who is stuck in the seat price because they're selling seats, such as Workday, right? They are selling human being systems of record.
Yeah.
And what do you do with that? Because they haven't moved to any kind of pricing that is different.
Yeah, I mean, it's if they don't, I mean, I would question the future
Ooh.
to some extent, right? In the sense that, yes, they have to like, yeah, they are a they are a co-pilot product. I mean, in the sense that you can't walk away from seats in that model.
Right.
But I would still think that there should be opportunities to at least move to a hybrid model, right? I think that's what I think about. I mean, maybe it's for the listeners, it's useful to describe the chart that you
Yes,
talked
I was
about,
going to ask you,
right?
like, please
Because then
describe
we
it.
can
Yeah.
frame this conversation. So what we have seen with AI is that, the way to choose your pricing archetype is only dependent on two dimensions: autonomy and attribution.
Yeah.
So think about autonomy on the y-axis and attribution on the x-axis. Autonomy as in, is there human still in the loop, or can I be fully autonomous?
Yep.
And attribution as in, low if I'm not impacting the, let's say, key, I cannot attribute my impact to the key business drivers of my customer, or if it's high, I can, right?
Yep.
So you have four quadrants. The bottom left quadrant, where you have autonomy is low and attribution is low, you have to be, that's basically your co-pilot, and your attribution is low. Slack, Workday,
Right.
Figma, Grammarly, many companies in that bucket.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You're pretty much relegated to seat-based pricing model. You're there. I mean,
Right.
many incumbents are there.
Right.
The bottom right quadrant is attribution is higher, autonomy is low. You're still in co-pilot mode, but you can actually attribute that you brought a lot of value to the table, and it's immediately evident for someone.
Right.
That's when you can go to a hybrid model, which is a seats and consumption. So if you think about Cursor or Clay or even Canva moved there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, so it's those kind of models actually make total sense, because, I mean, Cursor, you say, okay, you actually save days of productivity for a developer, and they know it. The attribution is high. You get code that is, sort of that you can already start working on.
Right.
Then you can actually say, okay, then you're in that hybrid consumption / seat model,
Right.
right? Unlike the Slack where you say productivity went up, but no one knows, right? I mean, so, um, and if you're in that top left quadrant where autonomy is high and attribution is low, likely you're a back-end platform infrastructure, where you don't need humans in the loop. You're producing outcomes, but they're not fully tied to the end metrics of a business.
Right.
Like incumbents like Twilio would be a great example
Right.
there, right?
Or
So
like OpenAI.
OpenAI, you're in usage-based pricing at that point, right? That's your best proxy for value because the more you use it, the more value you're getting.
Right.
Right. That's it. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Those are the right ones. The quadrant to be in, if you can, is the top right quadrant where autonomy is high and attribution is high. As in, agents can do their own work and the attribution is high, like FinAI, for instance.
Right.
There are other companies too, like that are in that quadrant that you can then meaningfully start having a conversation of outcome-based pricing, like charge flow. If I saved you some costs on chargebacks, etc., I take 25% of that, and it's highly demonstrable, and so on. Right. So you can actually see it as another example of a company being in that quadrant. So I think if you get back to like a company like Workday, if you're in that bottom left quadrant, I would be losing sleep to say, how can I actually at least move to the bottom right quadrant, which has some kind of provisions based on tokens, etc., which, I'm hoping that AI is infused into their products a lot.
Right.
And then how can I actually monetize for that? Because if you don't do that, you've basically taken your higher margin business. Now you're going to pay a lot of costs for those AI tokens.
Yep.
Even if the costs are going to come down, if the usage actually increases, you're going to pay more net dollars.
Right.
And then you've just eroded your margins.
So this
And if
is
the
really
seats come down in an organization, you've further eroded your margins.
right. So this is really interesting because if you have a seat-based business
Mhm.
and you attach an agent or some kind of variable consumption thing
Yeah.
that is not attributable,
Mhm.
and you're still stuck in the low attribution seat-based pricing, you're double screwed,
Yeah,
right? Because now you're consuming tokens and you can't attribute to
yeah,
it.
you just invented a excuse to like go out of existence. Means, why would you do that? I mean, if you can't build something on attribution,
Yep.
then I would even question like what is the AI doing for the product, right? I mean, for those kind of incumbents.
Right.
So like having some clear attribution and then moving towards a seat/tokens is the only way you'll hedge. Because if, let's say, in a traditional organization they're selling to, the seats might not grow.
Right.
That's the optimistic view.
Right.
Or shrink by 20%.
Yeah.
Right. Either way, if you're only on a seat-based license model,
Yeah.
you're basically capped your monetization.
Yep.
And let's say you put AI into it, like double screwed, and you didn't monetize on it.
Yeah.
Your costs went up. So you've eroded your margins and you've lost 20% of sales.
That's incredible.
That's you just put yourself in a situation for like fading away.
Yeah.
Shouldn't do that.
Got it. So like the
So
job
this
of
AI, I mean, as much as we talk about early stage companies, etc.,
yeah.
monetizing is key to winning in AI. It's actually way more true for traditional incumbents. If they don't do the right thing, they're going to be roadkill.
Right. So is a path to outcome go through the right first? So like stop increasing your attribution. So whatever you do, get high attribution first.
Yeah, I mean,
As opposed to high autonomy.
so the going on from the bottom left to the bottom right is the incremental approach I talked about.
Yeah.
Going from the bottom left to the top right is the revolutionary approach.
Got
like
it.
FinAI just
Burn the
jumped there.
ships.
Yeah.
I mean, like it goes straight.
FinAI started, as a net new thing.
Yeah.
New first principles thinking, jump to there.
Yeah.
The others are kind of moving this ways, right? I mean, if you take even like the coding platforms, they all were in seed based.
Yeah.
They moved to like hybrid.
Yeah.
Now they're talking about autonomous coding agents that can actually be, let's say, your QA engineer.
Yeah.
Right. And then they'll move naturally to the outcome based quadrant at that point.
Interesting. So what happens to the consumption only startup like Twilio or even AWS or OpenAI? They're just tokens right now, just tokens. So
yeah, I think just the tokens based model probably is still applicable for the larger LLMs, etc., because their view of the world is a bit different. I mean, they want to make sure everyone uses their products and increase usage, increase tokens. I think that
like a utility.
It's a utility, exactly. I mean, and at that point it makes total sense.
Yeah.
But if where this could go wrong is, let's say, if you're a middle level infrastructure player, you're not the bottom LLM stack, you're middle level, you should really think about also, how can you move towards a value-based pricing model, which could perhaps, I mean, at the worst case, at least have some translating mechanism based on tokens. But every business workflow consumes different types of, different number of tokens.
Yeah.
So then you can actually say, okay, I created an image, that's 3 tokens. I created a video, that's 5 tokens. At
Right.
least being smart about that.
Yeah.
But
So,
still,
so what happens to like the current voice agents? Like you have Land and Retail and Vapi and Poly. Like they're all charging for token for minute, right?
correct.
But they are doing more work in
Yeah.
the support arena as opposed to being a Twilio, which is a
Correct.
core infrastructure. It's like,
Correct.
what do they do?
So if you
Is that on the
started with
table?
if you started with the mentality of like, I'm a utility and I'm providing like, better voice, that's completely the wrong way to think about it. You're stuck in that quadrant and you're basically tying your destiny to like, declining costs, right? Unless, even if you engineered value-based pricing. The right way for many of those companies to actually think about is, how can I build pathways to more outcomes, and can I have end-to-end agents actually doing certain business workflows that are fully independent. Like
Yeah.
if I'm a voice agent in a let's say in a recruiting space, okay, I can how can I prototype something which actually takes the culture of the company and okay, and into account like what I'm trying to hire, and do the entire screening of resumes, give me the ones that actually I need to talk to, and it's attributable in the sense that if it was also done by humans, is as good or better quality, and
Right.
focus on that kind of attribution. Or like I did the first level of interviews, and here are the reasons why you should pass or not, and it becomes a agent product,
Yeah.
essentially someone recruiting for you, as opposed to just being a voice assist,
Got it.
right? And then you start moving to the outcome based. I think many of those companies are trying to build those kind of agents. I'm sure some of them are even talking to you. So like, how do we build end-to-end agents for actually solving
Yeah.
actual business problems,
Yeah.
as opposed to be just being a a picks and shovels player.
Right.
So I think that's the direction they should move.
Yeah.
They cannot be stuck on picks and shovels.
So it's interesting because I had a conversation with a lot of them. A few of them are starting to make a move.
Yeah.
But if most of them are just saying, "Hey, no, people are buying. It's fine. Like, people are buying. I'm making good business. I'm growing, and everybody's growing, so everybody's happy." And what I'm telling them is like, "Look, you're all gonna be serious."
How do they define growth? Do they also think about their margins?
They don't. Nobody's thinking about their margins. And I was gonna turn around and talk about that for a minute because I feel like, and I'm saying this with all the love in the world, I feel like Silicon Valley has done a disservice to the industry by telling them, don't worry about margins, go capture market share, margins sort themselves out later.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that, but I want to hear your take on that.
I completely don't agree with that. I mean, the subtitle of the book is How to Architect Profitable Growth.
It's right there.
How to architect profitable growth. I don't believe in growth or profits. It's not a choice. You need to do both, right? I
Right.
mean, good founders know how to dominate both,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's the whole thesis of the book, and how to actually do that. I think if you have a let's say a 50 million ARR business is negative 15% margin and really proud about it, at some point you need to think about, okay, when is this actually going to return, money to like all the investors, at what point, right? I mean,
Right.
how are you going to become a profitable business?
Right.
And if you just think that I will figure it out, that's just hope. That's not a strategy,
Interesting.
right? So I think while the business might look good today based on, I'm getting a lot of ARR, and even we can get into this, but how you measure ARR has also become a bit sketchy nowadays. I mean,
Right.
we can talk about that with AI. But you just say, I have a lot of ARR. I mean, I saw a founder recently who's been in business for 3 months and said, I have, whatever, 5 million ARR. It's like, how? It's like, I took the first, that out of those 3 months, took the best month and multiplied it by 12. And all right, that's great. That's one way to think about it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you don't know whether customers just bought it. Was it POC revenue? Was it actual commercial terms?
Right,
Will
right,
they
right.
churn? Will they stay? So without understanding all of this, celebrating that you have a great business,
Right.
I would question that. So I think really building towards profitable growth. In the book, we talk about how to, look at market share and wallet share
Yeah.
for profitable growth, not just one or the other. How to dominate both. I mean, and the key thing here is, it doesn't mean that you need to have equal efforts on market share and wallet share at every point in time of your company. In fact, you shouldn't,
Right.
because in certain times you need to be more indexed on market share versus wallet share.
Right.
But the problem is most companies operate on a single engine, which is I'm market share or I'm wallet share focused,
Right.
almost at the exclusion of the other, right?
Interesting.
And that single engine strategy is the core reason for many of these startups to actually fail, because by the time you wake up and start thinking about the other engine, the damage has been done.
Right.
Like, for instance, if you're too indexed on market share, you probably gave away an entry-level product that was so rich
Yeah.
that there's no expansion opportunities. I see this in tech all day long.
Yeah.
20% of what you build drives 80% of willingness to pay.
Right.
The irony, man, is this 20% is the easiest thing to build.
Right.
People build this 20%, call it an MVP, give it away for free, and they're chasing their tails to build 80% stuff that drives 20% willingness to pay.
Yeah.
Right? You lost the battle
Yeah.
because you're not thoughtful about wallet share.
Mm.
You're just thinking about market share.
Interesting.
Yeah, you got some expansion in accounts, but
Yeah.
what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
Right? So I
So
think
how much of this, I always wonder about it.
so you need to give equal attention to both topics,
Yeah, yeah,
not
yeah.
equal effort. And that's the whole point. And how do you run your company on a dual engine strategy?
Right.
You don't want to fly a plane on a single engine. Why would
Right.
you do that for your company?
All right, so let me put this back on you, because
Uh-huh.
I hear this argument a lot, and you know, the all-in pod has made it a sport to blame the founders on this, and I want to take the other side of it for a minute and say, look, you are an investor now, right?
Mhm.
You're an investor. You go to a company and you give them some cash, and you go tell your investors, look, I invested in this company. It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
How that's great look like is when it gets marked up by the next investor. So you go back to your investor and say, hey, look, we went from like this valuation to this valuation. The fund is already returning, whatever, 40, 50, 250%, right? Even though there's no DPI. Put that aside for a minute.
Sure.
So are you incentive to like go get the founders to go chase whatever revenue they can? In which case it'll always be, market share versus wallet share. Go get the new logo, get the new logo, get the new logo, as opposed to like expand in the account which you have, which is a lot harder to launch new products and expand in the account you have.
I would argue the other way, that if you're thoughtful about your monetization,
Yeah.
both from a profits and revenue standpoint,
Yeah.
that actually will lead to better rounds and increased valuation. I mean, if you're a Series A company and you're thoughtful about your monetization, that actually should improve your next round valuation.
Interesting.
Right.
So will you say that if you grow, say, 50%, and this 50% is in new logos for this company A, whereas this other 50% is half new logo, half expansion, the one that has half the new logos, half expansion has a better valuation? Is that what you're saying? Or is it?
No. I mean, it's of course you need to look at growth. I'm not dismissing that
Yeah,
growth as in ARR revenue growth,
Yeah.
but you need to have a clear conviction that you can actually at the end of the day build a profitable growth business.
Yes.
And either the founder needs to have that conviction, and the investors hopefully have the same conviction. Right. Conviction, not just based on like hope, but actually have a strategy for that.
Right.
So like in the investments that we make, I would really like to get into, is there an opportunity to like profitably grow in this business? You might, like I say, index on market share at certain points, wallet share on the other, but have you paid equal attention, and is there a pathway to actually have durable monetization?
Right.
And to me, that is the key.
Interesting.
So even if the round, like of course the rounds get marked up, but if it's marked up on a company that has durable monetization, that's the winners, right? Otherwise, it's just marked up and probably what next?
All right, so let's talk a couple hypotheticals. So what round recently would you have gotten on, and which round would you not have gotten on?
In terms of actual investments?
Yeah, in terms of actual investments.
Yeah, I mean, I think for we are trying to invest in seed and Series A rounds.
Yeah.
Right. Of course, we look at the valuations.
Right.
Our thesis is that we look at companies that have great monetization potential. Also, want to make sure the founders actually have the same shared vision.
Right.
And the how is the critical question.
Right.
And that's where we actually, if we invest, we unlock, we help unlock that by rolling up our sleeves and working with the founders as an extended part of the team.
Right.
Right. I mean, if it's if it's just a founder who has actually raised incredible amounts of money without any monetization and a pathway to actually get there, we are thoughtful about those kinds of businesses.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, in the sense that why is that, and
Right.
is there an actual willingness to pay in the market for what they're actually planning to build,
Right.
and can they tap into it? So like the book Monetizing Innovation, we talk about how to have the willingness to pay conversation. We wrote that for founders. We are now actually even using those conversations in our diligence process to understand whether products that people actually build
Right.
have willingness to pay, and we also use that angle, right? I mean, so I think I'm more interested in businesses that have a pathway to get to durable monetization and helping them unlock it.
Got it. So is there any example of one that got done recently that you, because I know your fund is early, right? So like
Yeah. I could talk investments that we have done so
yeah,
far.
yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the companies announced their Series A, and we are part of that list. So even if you probably go search for it, you're going to find it. So I could talk about that one. It's a company called Delphi.
Okay.
Do you know Delphi?
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, fantastic founders. They basically, create a digital mind representation of yours, right? I mean, like a clock,
Oh,
for instance,
that's awesome.
right? And what excited us about the business is, I mean, not only the founders are, technically superior, but they also have a great GTM mindset,
Mm.
a clear story of like why they're doing what they're doing. I mean, Dara actually started the company because he wanted to like, have his grandfather preserved for generations. Like, I mean, all the books, everything that he actually wrote on him, and have a conversation with him, and have that discussion. So there's a deep story there.
Yeah.
How do you actually make that into product? So they have multiple use cases for their products. I mean, they have thought leaders on one side, and then consumers on the other side. So like think about these podcasts, LinkedIn posts, YouTube videos, all of that is sucked in real time. And there's a AI version of yourself that can actually have a involved conversation with someone. I'm creating a Delphi of my own.
Yeah.
So think of it this way: it's like when a founder wants to ask their pricing questions, their custom pricing questions, they can they have two choices. They can either come to me or they can go to my AI.
That's
Of
awesome.
course, there's a scalability thing with me. I mean, I might be available for certain conversation, but with my Delphi, I can scale infinitely, in the sense that I've trained it now to actually do stuff like me.
That's awesome.
All my podcasts, all my YouTube videos, everything is real time sucked in.
Yeah.
And it can contextualize and give a specific answer.
Mm.
That is a fantastic way to actually engage compared to like static ways of just a post or just a Substack article, which is still not fully customized to my question. So I'm
Right.
kind of trying to get insights.
Yeah.
But if I have a question and I can engage with and these are video conversations, audio based conversations that you can actually have with this AI. So I think that's fantastic, right? I mean, so that's a thought leader.
They charge.
So they basically have packages for thought leaders, and depending on your audience reach, etc. They also launched a free product. There's a wait list for like for larger adoptions. It's being thoughtful about both the market share to actually get more eyeballs on the product, but also like thoughtful about the monetization on on let's say thought leaders who really want to reach a large scale audience.
Yeah.
So that and having that. That product can also be used for, longevity reasons. Like for instance, I mean, if I encapsulate myself, 3 generations later, my great grandson can have a conversation with me on video, and or audio. Like think of this like just calling and say, hey. What was your favorite restaurant in Palo Alto? It's like, okay, then I can have a conversation. That's a great way to leave my legacy in some ways.
Yeah.
Though even though I
Feels a
believe,
little weird.
yeah, weird, but I do believe that human longevity will be solved. That's a different conversation.
So that will be you. You'll be really old.
Exactly. But I think there's also other use cases. Like many CEOs are actually using, the product for like the first level of questions. So what excites me about the business, it's a bit like LinkedIn, where every dollar of R&D goes to like multiple different use cases.
Yeah,
Right? I mean, there's a sales navigator, there's a talent solution, so I think even in their case, all of their R&D investments can go to multiple different use cases, which are purpose built.
Yeah.
So there are pathways for profitably growing. I'm incredibly excited about their business.
So tell me one that you passed. But because
I'll tell you one that I passed. No, I'll tell you. Is like okay, I'll try to anonymize this to a certain extent so that the founder I talk to doesn't think whatever. I mean, I'll tell you. It's think of this as a product in let's say the travel industry. Okay, where it's an agent that they want to build.
Mm-hmm.
That you can basically tell the agent, let's say, I want to go to Denver day after tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, the agent goes and basically does all of the mix and match, understands your preferences. You like to fly United, you don't like middle seat, what is available is not, picks that, picks your Uber, picks everything, and gives you your travel plan. Sounds interesting.
Yeah. Sounds useful.
Very useful. But this is probably the obvious case that many of the, like the larger LLMs would do themselves, like a Google. What prevents them to actually do an agent which is actually going to be, and that's just going to be, frankly, a business that's uninvestable because the larger players themselves might provide functionality to do that, right? I mean, so I think so had to.
But you can make that argument all the time. Where do you draw the line?
No, I think it depends on like how let's say specific you get. I think what is the moat? I think that is the key thing, right? So I believe at least that the moat has to come from like some proprietary training data or like something that is, you bring to the table, or you're working on a messy regulated industry that actually requires knowledge to actually even operate on that, or you have network effects in the business that that automatically are creating moats when you're actually scaling, like a two-sided marketplace. Okay, if you get one side of the market, the other side follows your built-in network effects, right? Or you actually have some specialized vertical knowledge that gives you the, let's say, unique advantage of actually operating in that space, right? I mean, like I understand the insurance industry in and out, and I'm building an agent for that. It's very different from, a general travel use case, for instance, right? So I think the general agent use cases could be probably just an agent add-on on top of any of these LLMs.
Right.
I think the ones that are more purpose-built with specific modes, those are the ones that at least I'm interested in, Josh is interested in, 49Palms. And that's kind of where we draw the line.
Got it. So what would be your advice for early stage founders and even mid stage founders in terms of like pricing and margin at this point? So because the advice that you get from other VCs is that you just go grow and everything will sort out later.
Yeah.
So what should they be targeting a particular margin? Should they be targeting a particular wallet share versus market share? Like how do they think about the staging?
Yeah. I think it comes down to even understanding like what is your product actually worth for the customer. Did you understand it? And then did you choose to under-monetize? Or did you choose to under-monetize hoping that you can actually grow? That's a critical difference, right?
Right.
So with many founders, especially in the B2B space where if you're going through a POC, that's why we, let's say, tell founders that they have to build a business case. You actually can see what is the value unlock in that business case. And then a portion of that is what you're partaking in. And then you can choose a lesser portion for like growing faster or closing the deal. But at least you understood what the value on the table is. Right.
Do you think they're choosing, or you think that they just don't want to have the hard conversation?
They don't want to have the hard conversation. So many of them, right? Not but there are ways to actually have those hard conversations in a smart way. I mean, maybe I'll give an example, right? I mean, one of the companies that we talked to, they were building, let's say, let's just call it an agent, right? That was producing a lot of value. So as a founder, how do you come up with a price? It's like I just chose $50,000. I think that's reasonable, and and I'm able to close accounts faster with this. We are like, okay, great, that makes sense, but what is the value unlock? It's like tens of hundreds of millions. You're like, no, you should be charging 10 times this price, or probably in the millions.
Right.
It's like, okay, I don't want to impede my sales process, put friction in that whole process, and slow it down. Because like you said, I just want to close the deal, right? And I want to show the numbers. I want to keep growing accounts. So we said, okay, just do this one simple thing, right? Put an option on the table. A $50,000 plus 10% of the outcomes that I generate, or a $500,000 fixed fee. That construct gave him the courage to put a $500,000 price fund on the table.
Oh,
right?
Interesting, because it was a choice.
It was choice, and he gave the customer 50,000 plus 10% or 500,000. Okay, if he did that. The entire conversation gravitated towards around what is that 10%, how do you measure it, how do you monitor it, where is the value created. That's a great conversation to have, because you just invented a value-based conversation in that context.
Yes.
And once the customer actually realized that, oh my God, there's a lot of value actually being produced, and they understood the proof points, they're like, I like the 500,000. Right? And he got negotiated down to 400 instead of 40,000 that he would have gotten earlier, 400, 10x the price.
10x the price.
Now, with this case, you can probably say, oh, we need to grow fast. No, this was the same speed, the same deal. That you 10x your price. I would like to ask, which investor does not want that, right? That you could actually 10x your price. And had the same sales velocity,
Right.
why wouldn't you do that? It
Right.
was your right to actually win that.
Right. Right.
And you could have even charged more, right?
Right.
So this is being thoughtful about monetization from the get-go.
Mm.
Because if you under-monetize with hope, you're just training your customers to expect more for less.
Right.
And then it's very hard to undo those kind of situations,
Yeah.
right? And in cases like, some cases, if customers pick the 50,000 and the 10% outcome, that's a great situation to be in.
Right.
Because now you might partake in much more value creation.
100%. Now
Right.
you have a limited upside.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also gives you an opportunity to like better your products because you're concerned about the outcomes as much as the other your customer is, right? So I think my advice is don't postpone the conversation. I usually say price before product.
Yeah.
I think the first book, Monetizing Innovation, the folks from First Round, they summarized it in 4 words. It's just brilliant marketing. They call it price before product, period. Right? I mean, so I believe in that mantra. That's why I wrote the book.
Yeah.
As in, build stuff that people not only value but are willing to pay for.
Yeah.
And how do you understand that willingness to pay as you're building so that you can be thoughtful about your monetization? You might still choose to like quote unquote disrupt the market, but you understood what the value was.
Yeah.
That's the first thing, right? So have those conversations early. And also especially with agentic workforce products, if you're tapping into things like labor budgets, there's 10x budget more than traditional IT software budgets.
Yeah.
So being thoughtful about monetization is key.
So so actually talking about that, so there's the outcome-based pricing
Sure.
that is, everybody wants to go there. But there is this element of headcount
Yeah.
budget that you're replacing, right? So
Sure.
like I see a lot of by hiring your agent, you
Yeah.
don't have to
Yeah.
all these recs that you have open.
Yeah.
Now you can close some of them. Those recs have real money behind them.
For sure.
So in what situation can you go against that headcount budget?
Yeah, I mean, if your agent is as good as, let's say, the best human, you're in a great place to be in, right? I mean, or at least can do task of a above average AE, for instance, or an
Right.
above average recruiter, etc.
Yeah.
Then you can be in that position. And to your point, exactly, there are core budgets already there, right?
Right.
And if you just use a seat-based licensing model there, that's just doesn't make any sense, right? Because there's the labor budgets are 10x.
Right.
So if
Right.
it takes
So you just leave it flat out.
200K to hire a salesperson and you charge $5,000 for a seat for a year, I mean, like that doesn't make sense, right? I mean, you can, because it's like to like in some ways. So like in one of the companies that we advised in, I mean, an entrepreneur wanted to do a 10% of what it would take to like hire a salesperson. And we're like, no, this actually is, let's just call it salesperson, was a different agent, but 10% for hiring another person. We're like, no, this actually is like to like provable better. You've actually run the tests and you've shown that the outcomes based on an agent versus human trials are pretty similar and good. You should start at charging more than a human. And then he's like, what are you talking about? Like, that just sounds crazy. We're like, think about it. I mean, it takes 6 months to hire someone, 6 months to actually train them.
Yeah.
So it's not just a year salary. By the time they're productive, it's 2 years in some ways. So you're actually, if your AI can operate as the best, let's say, salesperson,
Yeah.
and is available 24/7, why wouldn't you think about it that way?
Interesting.
So then we frame the conversation at, okay, at least, like to like same price, got negotiated down to 70, because the way we showed the like to like price was it's 50% of what it would cost you for a salesperson, for instance, in that example, because of like the training and everything else and opportunity cost. But even though it was like to like, we're like, all right, fine. We the deal settled around 50 to 60% of what it would take for a sale.
That's amazing.
So a lot of this also comes down to how do you tell the value story, how do you frame the conversation, and being thoughtful about monetization. I think that's the key thing. That does not mean you slow down your sales velocity. That does not mean you're growing faster. If you can grow faster and profitably, why wouldn't you do that?
Right. No, 100%. And I think that there is this subconscious thinking that by being cheaper, it's gonna go faster.
Yeah.
And you just don't know that by being more expensive, you're gonna be just as fast.
Correct.
You're gonna make more money.
I think by going cheaper, you've just trained your customers to expect more for less.
Yeah.
And sometimes they also probably don't understand that there was value in the mix. I mean, there are, people would say, okay, in a blind test, a $200 wine was better than a $2 wine, even though you change the bottles, the $2, the $2, because price is a signal of value, right?
Right.
But it doesn't stop there, Manny. There was some studies in Stanford that was done where they actually put people through MRI scans, and a $2 bottle branded as a $200 bottle, and a 202. And when you ask people which one was nice, and they knew it, they saw it at 200 bottles, but it was $2 wine. Not only did they say they liked it better, their dopamine effects were also in an MRI scan relatively showing that that's exactly what they perceived. So it was not just I think
Just by looking at the
they
price.
perceived that a $200 wine was better than a $2 wine. They felt it, right? I mean, so I think we have to think about pricing as a value story. This is why it's important, not just be cheap, but like what value is it saying? I love Superhuman as an example, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when they came out, they were competing with like free Gmail products, but their product was actually meaningfully delivering value.
Yeah.
So they picked the $30 price point, and the way they contextualize their story is most important. And we wrote about this in the book as well. It was $1 a day to get 4 hours of productivity back in the week. Why wouldn't you pay that? I mean,
Right.
that makes total sense,
Yeah.
right? So how you tell your value story, how do you unlock that willingness to pay also becomes critical with startups.
Interesting. Do I didn't see this in the first book, and I'm not through it entirely or the second book, but the one thing I'm picking up is the fact that pricing is about the story that
Correct.
you tell around that pricing.
Correct.
So when are you telling how to compose stories that get you to a better price?
Yeah, it starts from like day one. I mean, if you can't pitch the value, I mean, even to an investor, you're pitching the value of the company, value, right? To a customer, you're pitching the value, right? Price has to be a reflection of that value pitch, right? I mean, like, what am I unlocking? I mean, you can go and say this is a great copilot that improved productivity boost, or you can say this will actually help you unlock X millions, and this is kind of what we have seen. And how do you showcase that value, and why is that tied to the business metric? And how can you simplify your value story to an extent where like Superhuman, it's like $1 a day saves you 4 hours. I mean, the conversation is good at that point, right? I mean, so we have specific chapters in the book. There's a chapter called Beautifully Simple Pricing, how to have that, especially in the startup phase. And the scale-up phase, you can afford to be a bit more complex. But like Beautifully Simple Pricing, and what is that? We also have a chapter on how to communicate on value and how to create value stories.
Yep.
How to how to master negotiations and actually use those value stories and ROI to actually sell. So we have chapters on all of those. So I think this is like you rightly said, when you think about pricing, it's really about monetization in the sense that it is taking your products, having the best conversations about the product, showcasing the best value, having the best sales conversation to partake in that value creation. If you have that mindset, you will have a value-based pricing mindset.
That's amazing.
Right.
I'm so excited to finish this book, and everybody should be getting this book.
Thank you.
It is, and also the first one too.
Yeah.
Because it is flipping this script into thinking about pricing first and product second opens your mind to the possibilities of charging more money for what you have, or even scoping down what you have and charging more money for that.
Yeah, charging the right money. It's just that you're charging.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Madhavan, thank you so much for coming in. That was an amazing conversation. I'm taking a lot of takeaways to implement in my own shop at Paid. I think a lot of our listeners are too. Thanks again for coming.
Thank you for having me, Manny. It was exciting.
Yeah, everyone should be getting this book. Go get it right now. Go to Amazon and get Scaling Innovation right now. Make sure that you read it over the weekend. It will help you. Trust me. Thanks again.
Thank you.